Well, I need you to explain this a little bit because I want you to understand how this space is managed in this scene. So, do you remember when I told you we needed the basic components that are important to run the 3D game, and those were the engine and the camera and the scene and all of that? Well, so the camera is the mechanism that we will allow us to see what's happening inside the scene, right? But the scene is like the world. It's like all the objects we have, all the textures, all that we see on the screen, that those will be inside the scene. But the scene has three coordinates and it has its own space. So right now I haven't set in the position of the objects, in this case of the paddle and the ball and the bricks, and those are positions along these three axes. So we have the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. So we have three of them, and every one is pretty important because it will set the position of our object in the space of the scene. So always for all these scenes, they will start at the center, and the center is the origin, and they will be at the position 0 on x, 0 on y, and 0 on z, right? So we usually, to see what's happening there, we need a camera, and the camera will move for whatever the player is, anything, and it will change the perspective that we can see in this scene, right? So in all that we see on the scene is through the camera, but we have that in our screen, and all that is happening inside the scene, it's inside this space, its own space. So remember that the scene is like a level or their own world or something like that. So in our case, we have something like this, right? So we have the ball, the paddle, the bricks, and it has its own space. But I am trying to do this looks like a 2D game, not a 3D game. But in fact, all the objects are 3D game objects. So I'm going to try to explain a little bit what is happening here. So we have the x-axis and the y-axis, right? From the perspective of 2D. The origin is the center. The center of our level or the scene that we're using, it's the origin. It's a 0, 0, 0. If you remember, I changed the ball position because it was between the bricks, and I changed them to be 0, minus 2.5, and 0. If you can see here, all the z-axis values are 0 because I'm not changing them. I want you to understand. And I'm just gonna use the x-axis and the y-axis, two axes like a 2D game, but in fact we are in 2D space. So I changed also the position of the paddle to be below the ball, which is minus 3. If I go to the code, we can see that the y position of the paddle is minus 3, and the position of the ball is minus 2.5 on the y-axis. All the others are 0. Something important to note here also is that when I change the camera, we can see that we are moving in the space. I'm not moving the camera from the position, I'm just moving the perspective of the camera, right? That's fine. We are nowhere with the camera in this game. I just want you to know that we can do that, but I'm not gonna work on that right now. So coming back again, so I need to add the walls, right? And we have a way to do it in Babylon, is just to set the points. So the units we have in the space are not pixels. That's something it's confusing at the beginning, because if you are developing in 2D games, you are used to pixels, the top left, the X and Y position, but it's in pixels. In this space we are not using pixels at all, but units, right? And that's why we are using here the units. We are not using pixels. Keep that in mind. So we know the center is at the 0 position. This is the origin, and I need 4 points to create some lines, but I need to set the points with vector trees, or points in the space of in the space of this scene, what it understands, that are not pixels. If I change this a little bit, so imagine that we can measure different units, and I put in, if I want to go to the left, I need to subtract any value to be negative numbers, and I move an object to the left. So in this case, -1, it should be 1 unit to the left, and -2 will be 2 units to the left, and so on. If you can see the point 1 here, it's on the Y position, on the X axis, -2, and it's -3, so it's here. This is the starting point, and I'm going to start creating this to this point, to point 3, to point 4, and with those points I'm going to create the lines that I need just to create the margins or the walls I need to use in the game. Okay, it's happened something similar in the other axis, but in the case of the Y-axis we have something similar here. So we have, if you're gonna want to go up from this perspective to the perspective, you need to add more values or more units in a positive way. So this can be the 2, and this can be 3, but if you want to go to the bottom, so you need to add, you need to subtract, or you need to add negative values, right? In this case our ball is at 2.5, it should be something like here. Okay, I know this is not perfect. I just want you to understand how we can move. So if I subtract 1 unit in the Y-axis, then I can put my object here, and if I subtract 2, I can go even below, and so on. How we define the units in the screen is defined by the camera when we create the camera. I'm not going to explain that right now. I just wanted to understand how we can handle the positions, and why we're using numbers on the positions and not pixels, right? Again, so the space in the scene is by units, not by pixels, and we need to be aware that we can add negative if we want to go to the left, and we can add positive number we want to go to the right. Okay, so it's happens the same with the Z-axis, but I'm not gonna explain that, or I'm not gonna work with that axis right now. So I just want you to understand that, because I need to create these walls here, and that's what I'm going to do in the next video.